doctor when you have an ailment, like a headache, and they say, here's something to get rid of the headache. You go to the doctor for diabetes, and they manage your diabetes or heart disease. They're not managing, you never go to a doctor when you're healthy. And so that is one of the aspects that's very broken here. And what we're seeing in the United States and across the world is a rise in chronic disease, a rise in, a fall in the life expectancy rate in the United States over the last 5 decades. The life expectancy rate over the last 5 decades has been falling, and we are now at number 53 in the US. This means us, and as if we're middle-aged, and our children. At least 50% of these can be solved if you take care of how your digestion works. And digestion means, what do you put into your body, and then how does it get processed and comes out? I would argue that the number is closer to 80% or more. So when I speak about possible solutions, there are some assumptions that we always want to make. When we sit down to eat, this is an assumption that has to be true at least 80% of the time when we sit down to eat. We sit down and we eat mindfully. We be in a calm state and not be distracted by a TV on or eating on the run as we're so used to. When you begin eating or before you begin eating, you want to drink water, warm water, to raise the body temperature above 97.5. Usually our body temperatures can be below that. That starts or kicks off the digestive juices. You want to make sure that your food is chemical-free. 99% of the food that we're putting into our bodies is being treated with some sort of a chemical input. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. When we chew, again, this is to set yourself up for ideal digestion. We chew often. The number is around 30 to 36 times for each morsel. And then a final rule is don't eat 3 hours before bed. So what are some things? This list is not exhaustive. I just want to give you a frame, a reference. I'm just kind of setting the talk up right now. What are some things that can throw digestion off? We know this, but I'm just reminding you. Chemicals in the food and in the water. Our water is quite compromised. Too much of anything can throw off digestion. Exercising too much, exercising too little, being sedentary. If you're sitting around for over 90 minutes, you begin to produce sugars in your body. Medicine, or too much medicine. And I'm just going to call this out for a second. Do we know what medicine is? And do we actually know how medicine works? The liver, which is a very efficient organ, is designed to remove toxins from the body. Medicine is seen as a toxin in the body. So what they do is when they create the dosage of the medicine, they created the dosage of the medicine to be greater than the liver can handle, so that the liver handles whatever it can handle, and that overrun is what then gets sent into your bloodstream to reduce the ailment, like a headache or something like that. And finally, clearly we've heard about stress, and there are different types of stressors. If you work out too much, that's a stressor to the body. In some cases, a good stressor, but if you overdo it, it's a bad stress. And of course, we're familiar with all the other stresses, and then sleep also. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through the digestive process. We are in charge, or we have to be in charge of our own health. And this is not going to get technical. I'm going to try and make this as as palatable as possible, pun intended or pun not intended. And But it's important for you to know so that you can get in tune with your body. You can understand what's actually happening and why it may be happening, at least a little bit. And then towards the end, I'll get into how you can test different things. I've got a blood pressure monitor here, and then there are other things that you can do. But I'm not going to get into that exhaustively. That's like a whole nother talk. Okay, so how does the digestive process begin? It begins when you begin to smell the food. When you smell the food, the salivary glands begin emitting juices, your stomach begins emitting juices, that aroma begins. Then you begin a mechanical breakdown process when you put the food into your mouth. So you chew it, it goes down your esophagus, and then down into the stomach. Now there's a lid over here, it's called the LES. I'll talk about that in a bit. It goes down into the stomach, and in the stomach, it's almost like a nuclear environment. The pH level over here is between 1 and 3, which means that it's very acidic. So whatever comes into the stomach, it's supposed to be completely destroyed, completely annihilated. It stays here for 2 to 4 hours, depending on what type of food you eat. 4 hours generally for meats and fishes, 2 hours for vegetables and leafies and all that stuff. Then after that, it exits the stomach, and it comes into the upper part of the small intestine. It's called the duodenum, not important. Just know that there's a third part of the intestine. It's the upper part, it's the duodenum. There, this is sizzling in here. There, it comes out, and then it gets cooled down and alkalined. And if it doesn't get alkalined, then it remains acidic, and it can burn through your intestines. So here, if everything, again, this is assuming everything is working properly, the gallbladder showers it with cool alkalizing liquids. It's called bile. And then it goes through the process of the small intestine, which is this part. And during this part, what's happening is an extraction is happening. The food is now broken down into very small bits, and the extraction of the nutrients from the food is beginning at that point and going into your bloodstream. So let's say we eat a salad. A salad contains magnesium. A salad contains manganese. A salad contains copper. All of these elements that your body needs. So satiety, fullness, or satiety meaning being nourished, not fullness, because fullness is a physical thing. Your stomach can be full. That's not what I'm speaking about. I'm talking about nourishment. Giving your body nourishment doesn't happen in the stomach. Just because you're full doesn't mean that you're being nourished. The nourishment happens when the correct nutrients are extracted from the intestine into the bloodstream, into the superhighway of the bloodstream, and sent to each and every one of our cells according to its needs. So the nutrients are sent around, and then they go to the body. Satiety or nourishment sits at the cellular level. So if that nutrient gets into your cell, you are now nourished. So that's the overview here. Okay, do we know what acid reflux is? I think this is the first one that I decided to start off with. I'm sure we're all very familiar with acid reflux. Acid reflux is when there's some feeling of acidity in the esophagus, in this area. Here, I'll point to it on the screen. In this area. What's actually happening, this is called the LES. So what's actually happening is the food is coming down into the stomach, and then there's a lid over here. That lid is called an LES, lower esophageal sphincter. Not important. Just know that it's a lid that opens and shuts. The issue with acid reflux, how many over here think that acid reflux is a case of too much acid or too little acid? Anybody? Shout out, no? Acid reflux doesn't mean that you've got too much acid in the stomach. It actually means you've got too little acid in the stomach. And we'll talk about why that's the case. Why do you have too little acid in the stomach? So acid reflux, which is if you eat something spicy, if you eat a heavy fat meal, all of a sudden you feel this burping or this feeling of acidity in your throat, it means that the food is not being digested because there's not enough acid in the stomach, and that lid remains open, and it allows the food to go back up. So what do we normally do? When you go to a doctor, what does a doctor normally do? They give you Tums, or they give you something to kill the acid. That's exactly the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be adding more acid into your stomach so that that lid can close. Now, if you add Tums or Pepto-Bismol to this ailment, that will go away. The feeling of the acidity will go away, but it'll also raise the pH of the stomach to such a point that the digestive enzymes inside the stomach will now also come up, and they'll start burning through your esophagus. So you can get into a very complicated issue if you're continuously downing Tums or Pepto-Bismol type stuff. So very, very quickly, down here I've got a little table. Acid reflux means you have low stomach acid. Low stomach acid causes undigested food to stay longer, leading to acid reflux. So the simple remedy is not all of these things. I'm just listing out what you would do first. You would drink some warm water before a meal. If you constantly are getting this, try drinking warm water before the meal. Sit down in calmness. All of those assumptions that we talked about. ACV is apple cider vinegar. So what I do in my salad is I have a component of at least 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar in my salad. And I put that with the olive oil and whatever else, however I make my dressing. And that helps me get some acid inside my stomach. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, constipation. So constipation is not something normal. I know sometimes we experience it when we're fasting. If you're fasting every day and you're eating every day, then you shouldn't be constipated. But if you're fasting for more than one day and you're not eating for many days at a time, then yes, that's not a constipation. That's basically you just don't have any food in your stomach. That's not what I'm speaking about here. Constipation is literally food getting stuck. It means that the food has come into the stomach and it's not being destroyed by the acid in the stomach. And then it moves down into, this is that duodenum area that I was speaking about, the upper intestine, and then the gallbladder and the liver and the pancreas are showering it to continue to break it down. But it hasn't been broken down in the stomach, and now it's this bigger entity. Sometimes it's still whole food. It hasn't been broken down at all, depending on how good or bad your digestive system is, and it's there and it gets stuck. And when that happens, it just moves very, very slowly through the system. Now, this means that waste is being incubated inside your body for longer than it should be. The waste should be coming out, treated, and moving along, you should be going to the bathroom. Some people say 1 time a day, some people say twice a day. There's differing opinions on that. I don't have an opinion on that. Sometimes we go once a day, sometimes we go twice a day. It depends on what you're doing, what you're eating, and how often you're eating and all of that. That's a factor here. So here, very quickly, constipation, again, is a function of low stomach acid. And then we talked about, so inadequate acid slows fat digestion, for instance. It leads to sluggishness inside your intestines. So if it's sticking around in your intestines, not only is potentially the extraction may or may not be occurring because the food is not digested. If the food is not being broken down, that means we cannot get the nutrients out of the food and into your bloodstream. It's now turning into waste and fermenting inside, and it's going to make you sicker. Okay, moving along. Now, diarrhea, that's the opposite of constipation. What is diarrhea? So let's talk about that here. So now, in this particular case, the food comes in, the assumption is that the food is being broken down. There's plenty of acid, and now it's exiting into this area, into the upper intestine. But the bile or the shower isn't there. The cooling off effect isn't there. And the body gets frightened. And the body says, this acidic food cannot stay in the body, and it rushes it out. That's what diarrhea is. It means that the bile, there could be an issue with the liver, there could be an issue with the gallbladder. If you don't have a gallbladder, there could be an issue with that, and that needs to be managed well. You'll be fine. Not having a gallbladder is not a good thing. You need the gallbladder. But if you don't have it, you can still manage it in some other ways. And now the body is rushing it out. Now, if the body is rushing out food with loose stool or diarrhea, is there extraction happening with the nutrients in your digestive system? It's rushing out. Not enough time to get the extraction. So are you getting the picture? I'm trying to paint a picture that this is a well-oiled machine, if you will, to use another analogy, and it has to have the right balance. So if it's rushing out, the nutrients aren't getting extracted, and then other problems can happen. So when you experience things like fatigue, when you experience things like tiredness or anxiety or sleeplessness, it's more than likely that it can be solved with proper digestion, because digestion, the whole digestive process, is a process of eating food and gaining energy from that food at the cellular level. If we're not getting the nutrients into our cells, we're not going to operate in the best way possible. So there are many examples of people who are anxious, many examples of people who have mental issues. These are mostly due to nutrient issues or nutrient deficiencies. When you rebalance the nutrients in the body, and some people use supplements, some people use medicines, those are all unnatural synthetic ways to balance the body. The body does not balance itself. The body does not balance itself well with synthetic nutrients or medicines. Eventually, that is going to come back and bite you. Yes, it might solve the headache or it might solve the digestion today, but if you keep on relying on that, what you're doing is you're shutting down other parts of your body, because now something external is coming in and you're beginning to rely on this external supplement or synthetic. Okay, so diarrhea is a function of low bile issue. Sure. Absolutely. That's one of the first things I said in the beginning on the second slide. Stress, anxiety. I'm going to talk about that in another slide in a second. Okay, so that's diarrhea. Bloating, same thing. I'll just go through it very quickly. Bloating almost always is some bacteria or pathogen camping out in your stomach and causing an issue. So whatever food that you're putting into your stomach, it's eating it. Why is that happening? It's happening, and they're releasing gases, and bloating and burping and all sorts of issues can emanate from that. That's happening because that bacteria isn't dying off. Why is that bacteria not dying off? Because there's not enough stomach acid. Most of the people walking around here, we don't have enough stomach acid. I've experienced that. And so how do you add stomach acid back in? So once you have, it has to be a very low pH environment, and it's very easy to test. You can use a pH strip, you can use a saliva, and you can test it. Again, I'll touch on chemistry a little bit later in the talk. Okay, so I'm not trying to throw out technical words. Now, you see the words here, anabolic versus catabolic. Very, very simply put, anabolic generally means you're in a restful state. And when your body is in a restful state, it's going through a repair. So when you lift weights, while you're exercising or lifting weights, you're in a catabolic state because you're expending energy. And you're not supposed to be tired at that point. If you were tired, you wouldn't be able to lift weights. But then after you're done lifting weights, you get tired. Now you've moved into an anabolic state, which is completely natural. So your body, generally speaking, when you're sleeping, you're in an anabolic state because you're repairing. You need that sleep and you're repairing. And then during the daytime, you're in an active state. You're exercising, you're walking around, you're talking to people, you're working, you're using all of this thing, and you're generally in a catabolic state or an active state. That doesn't mean that you cannot go from one to the other. These are just general rules. Now, this is just a general condition. You're either feeling tired. If you're tired, you're in an anabolic state. Your body's saying, hey, I need to be tired right now. I need for you not to do anything because I need to repair from inside. So it's making you tired. Now, what if you're tired all the time? That's your body telling you that you're in an anabolic state, or your body has kicked itself into an anabolic state because something is imbalanced. It's not getting something. So why is this important? I'll give you one very key example in digestion. If you're in an anabolic state, for instance, the body sends water to the kidneys. If you're in a catabolic state, active, running around, your body sends water to the colon. Have you made the connection? So if your body is balanced, then the water is being sent properly. But what if your body keeps getting kicked off? You're tired all the time, and you're always in an anabolic state. The water is going to the kidneys. If it's not going to the colon, constipation. Making the connection? So what can kick you into an anabolic state or catabolic state? Anxiety means you're in a catabolic state. Tiredness, fatigue means that you're in an anabolic state. What if you wake up in the morning, you're supposed to wake up in a catabolic state, in an active state, up and ready and sprightly and ready to go. And if you're not in a state and you're fatigued in the morning, that means your body has been kicked for some reason into an anabolic state, whether it was stress, whether it is stress, whether it's something that you ate, that can kick you into an anabolic state or a catabolic state, depending. The point that I'm making is that the body needs its nutrients in order to remain well balanced. If the body isn't getting its nutrients, digestively speaking, the body is, or you're applying this external stress on your body, for instance, eating something that you were sensitive to, that you were allergic to, stress from outside because of work or whatever, that can kick you into a state that you're not supposed to be in for a very long time. But if you end up in that state for a very long time, it's going to keep your body imbalanced, and it's going to lead to other issues. Hopefully that was clear. I just took the top, digestive issues that people do, and I put it on a table. I'm happy to share this presentation with you. So we talked about stomach acid being so important and bile being so important. How do you increase stomach acid? And these are just some points here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I talked about them in the beginning. One of the ways to increase stomach acid is to take apple cider vinegar before your food. Again, we're making the assumption that you're being calm, you're sitting down, you're not watching TV, because TV can kick off a sympathetic response in your body, which means that the TV can create something that excites you. You're supposed to be in rest and receiving while you're eating food, the digestive juices. What if something happens that's a stressor? The digestion stops. The digestive juices stop or slow down, and that can affect digestion, for sure. So we're making those assumptions that I talked about in the first part. You can incorporate bitter foods to aid in digestion, to increase stomach acid. I talked about chewing food 25 to 36 times. I know that sounds like a lot, and it does feel like a lot, and I don't even know if I don't do it. But when you're mindful and you're focused on eating, you'll be more mindful about how you're taking that food in, and you'll be more mindful about how often you're chewing it, because most of the time we're just regurgitating the food down. The reason why we're taking the food in is because, so here's a little bit of a side note, but it's a very related note. I talked about medicines and how medicines work. Did you know, and I also talked about the chemical application in our food. They're 99.3%, it's more than that, of our food, even some organics, are being treated with pesticides. This is a form of medicine or a toxin. Now, if we're overloading our body with these foods, now the meats that we get at the halal store or other stores, they're being fed grains and genetic modified food. That's medicine. When our body sees that, when our liver sees that, the liver says, oh, there's toxicity here, I need to get rid of it. And then you know what happens? Then you eat again, and the liver is overwhelmed. And then you eat again, and the liver is overwhelmed with all of these toxins coming in. And the liver doesn't know what to do with it. You know what the liver does? The liver says, okay, I can only handle this much. Let me sock some of these toxins away in the fat cells. And it keeps doing that. So obesity today is not a function of eating too much food. Obesity today is a function of toxicity that the liver is sending away into the tissues and into the fat cells for storage to deal with it later. But if we're constantly barraging our bodies with food that is compromised or grown with synthetic inputs, you're just never going to let the liver up, and that's why you see an obesity epidemic. I think we're greater than 30% in the United States. We're probably closer to 40%, if not encroaching in on 50%. The acidity in the stomach? Yeah, so the question is, why is the acidity in the stomach low today, largely speaking? It is because the foods that we are eating, it's actually a vicious cycle. Acidity and normal digestive juices that are created, the source of that are nutrients. So if we have a good balanced nutrient level coming into our body, the magnesiums, the manganese, the vitamin C's, all of the vitamins, and they're coming into our cells, and it's coming in as in a balanced way, in the proper amounts, in the proper ratios, your body will function properly, meaning it'll create the juices when the juices are needed. It'll create the enzymes when the enzymes are needed. The pancreas creates enzymes to digest food. It'll make sure that the pancreas is working well. But if those nutrients are not getting extracted into the superhighway, into our arterial superhighway, then the body is at a loss. And the body will then enter into this vicious cycle of vicious downward cycle where the body is not getting its nutrients, the body is unable to produce the adequate amount of juices, unable to produce the adequate amount of stomach acid, and then it just gets into this vicious thing. And you're constantly barraging it. So at some point, you have to take a reset, and you have to understand where you are and reset yourself back. Hopefully that, at least in part, answered your question. We can come back to that if we need to. Other things that you can do to increase stomach acid is add ginger to your diet. Oh, okay. So before that, you can. I've got something called betaine hydrochloride. Betaine hydrochloride is basically acid. That's what it is. So there's a supplement out there. There's one supplement that I recommend. There are many supplements out there. Most of the supplements have pepsin, which is from pig. Most of the supplements. If it says pepsin, it's usually from the inner stomach lining of a pig. So you want to get a digestive enzyme, or actually a digestive enzyme or an acid that is not pepsin-based. However, this is a last resort. If you're going to go down this route, it's fine, you can go down this route, but you need a healthcare practitioner to manage this. A lot of healthcare practitioners will say, yeah, just take the acid. You're not supposed to do that. If you're going to take the acid, if you're going to take an acid supplement, you need to make sure that you're balancing it out with a bile supplement. If you don't balance it out with a bile supplement, then all you're doing is sending more acid down, and you're potentially creating a worse imbalance for yourself. Apple cider vinegar is more manageable. It's less concentrated than the betaine. Yeah, it's food. The betaine is just more concentrated. Ginger, of course, staying hydrated. This practice of the Prophet ﷺ of drinking a third water for your stomach is actually a good practice. I've done some research on it. It actually helps in the aiding of the creation of digestive juices in your stomach. How am I doing on time? Okay. Staying hydrated, zinc, and of course, stress reduction and avoiding processed foods. Okay, going to, sorry? Dandelion, bitters, so bitter food, bitter lemon. Sorry? Yes, exactly. I think that's called bitter lemon. I think it's called bitter lemon. There are some plant extracts that are bitter, so you can take those. Again, those are more gentler. They're in the form of food, and that's why they're highly recommended before you resort to supplements or something synthetic. Okay, so getting to increased bile. So remember, there's actually three aspects that balance things out. There's enzymes, there's in your stomach, there's stomach acid, and then there's bile. All three of these have to be balanced. So enzymes would be balanced by making sure that you're calm, you're all of the things that I talked about, those assumptions. Let's just talk about bile for a quick second. Again, drinking warm water with lemon can increase bile. Walking can increase bile. Dandelion, this is a plant. When you eat fats, that can increase bile. So that kicks off bile production when you eat fats. So avocado is a good fat. Olive oil is a good fat. I actually, I would drink a good amount of olive oil. It has to be organic. 90% of the olive oil is mixed with sunflower oil. And that is one of the most toxic foods that we can put in our body. And we, from the South Asian community, are cooking, actually, pretty much all the restaurants. There's an app called Seed Oil Scout. And that tells you which restaurants are using seed oils. What's a seed oil? A seed oil is vegetable oil, corn oil, sunflower oil. These oils are not really food. They go through a very acute industrial process, and they become viscose. Your body sees it as a toxin. And that is probably one of the keys to some of the health issues that we're seeing around the United States. So there's an app that tells you which restaurants to avoid. And there's only 4 or 5 restaurants in all of Austin that don't use seed oil. Of course, all the South Asian restaurants use seed oil, and we eat them in abundance. So we're at a loss. And so we have to figure out, how to navigate this. I'm speaking to you, this is an epidemic. We are in trouble if we're not mindful about this. So now, in terms of supplements for bile, there's something called beet flow. Now these are beet greens, and if you ate beet greens, you'd have to eat as much as a horse, about the size of this table. We can't eat that. We're not horses. So they give you, they sell a supplement. It's called Beet Flow. Again, there's one supplement that I know of. There's one company that I know of that sells Beet Flow. If you want to, so when you take acid, you would balance it out with Beet Flow or beet greens. And then if you do not have again, nothing that I'm saying here is giving you medical advice. This is educational purposes only. Go see a doctor. I have to be very careful about that. If you do not have a gallbladder, that means, so that's the primary place where bile is stored. If you do not have a gallbladder, it means the bile isn't being stored in concentration. And sometimes as the food is coming down, it needs a good showering of the bile to cool the food down so that then you can go through the extraction process in your intestines. If that's not, because you don't have a gallbladder, if that's not flowing properly, then you may have to add bile salts to that. But that needs to be done under the management of a healthcare practitioner. Okay. Okay, we talked about that. Just an example, this is how I eat. I eat 2 times a day, around 10 to 12 in the morning, and then around 4 to 6 p.m. in the evening. I'm eating within a 6-hour window. The other times, I'm not eating anything, I'm just drinking water. When I do that, what I'm doing is I'm giving my body rest for 18 hours a day so that my body can allow itself to digest itself. Whatever I'm eating here, just know that I am doing the best I can to buy the best eggs. And what do I mean by the best eggs? I'm buying eggs that are pasture-raised, organic, from a farmer that I know. I know what he's doing with his chickens. I do not trust any store in all of Austin. None of them sell the eggs that I would eat. The sourdough bread, I buy it from a lady. She happens to be Egyptian. I think she's married to an Egyptian. She's American, but she's married to an Egyptian. But she ferments the sourdough for me. And she said, oh yeah, I do fermented sourdough. I was like, okay. I go, how long do you ferment it for? She goes, I ferment it for 12 hours or maybe 24 hours. I said, actually the number is 72 hours. Would you do it for 72 hours for me? And she said, yes. I'm the only one of her customers that she ferments her sourdough. And so if you go back home, if you go to Egypt or Pakistan or wherever you're from, and you eat the bread from there, they still use these ancient practices that our grandmothers used, and you taste the bread, it's sour. It's sour tasting. Why is it sour tasting? Because they're leaving it to ferment. Why are we fermenting bread? So that we can digest it. In order for us, our bodies to be able to digest and extract the nutrients from it, it needs to be fermented so that the wheat kernel is broken down completely and the protein is broken down completely. Okay, so let me just go through this. Today is Saturday, so today I ate. I actually ate, sorry, this is Saturday. Yeah, I actually ate in the earlier part. This should be moved to the earlier part. So tomorrow I'm going to wait because I ate kind of late. Then I'm going to wait in the morning so I get my 18-hour break. And then I'll eat here. It's actually a preference. It's actually a preference. It is actually better to have a breakfast because your cortisol levels are high in the morning. It's better to eat a protein, a small protein like Greek yogurt or something, early in the morning to kick off your metabolism. Your cortisol levels are high, and there's a chemistry advantage to eating at that time. But you're going to get hungry. If you eat within 1 hour of waking, you're going to get hungry. Your metabolism is going to get kicked off. So if you're an athlete or if you're very active, then your metabolism will get kicked off because you're planning to eat for a couple of times. But my eating window is within 6 hours. I eat within 6 hours, and then I don't eat anything after that. I don't snack. When I eat once, I eat twice, I don't snack in the middle. Every now and then I'll cheat, no big deal, but that. And on Mondays and Thursdays, I fast. So I'm fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. But when I break my fast on Monday, I'm eating a salad. It's only a 500-calorie meal. And the reason why I'm doing that is because there's some science out there that tells me that if I fast and I eat a very small, I'm mimicking a 5-day fast. So the benefits of a 5-day fast I'm getting with this very tiny meal when I break my fast. I can answer more questions about this later, but this is this whole eating thing could be an entire class. And you're not really going to appreciate it until you actually start doing it yourself. Everything that I eat here, again, as I said, is filtered for purity. So I go around Austin. I mean, I know where my food is. I go to Natural Grocers, and I go to Wheatsville, and I go to farmers markets. That's basically it. Every now and then I'll end up at an H-E-B or a Whole Foods because I need something desperately, and I'll buy it organic. I'll buy it organically. But I don't trust H-E-B's organic. I don't trust Whole Foods organic. Imagine Whole Foods, and I think I mentioned this before. This is part 3, by the way. I've given two talks before, prior to this. So they were kind of the setup to this type of a talk. Imagine that Walmart, Costco, Whole Foods. Who is Whole Foods owned by? Amazon. What is Amazon in the business of? To sell stuff. They sell stuff. That's what they do. They sell plugs and cell phone cases. And what's their primary purpose? To extract as much profit from this stuff as possible so that they can make more profit. What business do they have owning Whole Foods? What do you think they're going to do with our food? They're going to extract the maximum amount of profit from our food and then sell it to us. And when they're doing that, what they're doing is they're growing food with the highest efficiency. What does that mean? That means I'm Amazon or Whole Foods. I go to a small farmer. You're a small farmer. You own 10 to 200 acres. That's a small farmer. And I say, I need 1,000 heads of lettuces. And he was like, I can't do 1,000 heads of lettuces. And he said, okay. Amazon goes, no problem. I'm going to go to someone else. They marginalize a small farmer. The reason why organics are getting more expensive is because a small farmer needs to still pay their taxes, utility bills, and all of that, but they're being marginalized and they're being competed against with Walmart food, which is half the price, that's grown with all these chemicals so that they can produce the 1,000 heads of lettuces or the 10,000 heads of lettuces that Walmart demands. That's not farming. That's an industrial operation. Farming is when a farmer that you love is growing food with love and care. Do we remember the days when we used to go to a farmer and the farmer was so excited and say, hey, when you cook food, you're so excited and say, hey, taste this, I made this dish. It's the same with the farmer. The farmer is literally making a dish for you by growing it in pure soil. I made this great tasting strawberry, look at it. And then look at this strain of strawberry, look at it. That's love and care. That's gone. It exists in some parts of like Indonesia, some parts of Pakistan, even some parts of America. For sure, it exists here, but it's not the norm. And if we don't patronize those farmers, even they're going to disappear, and we're going to be at a real loss. So I pay more, but look at how much I eat. I don't have to eat that much in order to be healthy because I'm getting my nutrients. Satiety sits at the cellular level. When our cells are satiated, our body signals that we're not hungry anymore, so we don't have to eat that much. Yes. I eat 3 eggs a day with the yolk. Yes. That is good cholesterol, yes. It's good fat. It's good fat. So hopefully I got you to some level of appreciation for how the digestion works and how to balance it out. There's one thing that's missing here. Oh, okay, right here. So you can do this all by yourself. This is all chemistry. And I know chemistry, we're not chemists and all of that stuff. But to take a saliva, there's a chart that you would fill out. You do a food journal, and you can literally get in tune with how your body is reacting to certain foods at certain times. You take your blood pressure, you take your pulse, you take a glucose thing, cheap stuff, $20. I got this for $20. I don't normally patronize Amazon even for stuff because I don't want to give them money, but I got this from Amazon. I admit that, but that's only because I needed it really fast. It's a blood pressure monitor. So after a meal or twice a week, I'll do my blood pressure, I'll do a saliva test, I'll do a urine pH test, a saliva pH test, a urine pH test, I'll do a pulse glucose, and I'll track it if I'm feeling not so great. And I'll look at the chemistry, and the chart is like already made, and you can see where your anomaly is. This is part of what I do as a nutritionist. So it helps you see right there a very different way that a blood test will not show you. So just certain things that you can, taking health into your control, you can do this. It's very attainable. This is something that you can learn very, very easily. And I encourage you to do that. Any questions? Good question. So hopefully I demonstrated that food is medicine, right? If you put the proper food, if you got the proper digestion, the proper extraction is happening in your intestines, into your blood cells, into your blood and to your cells, and then the nutrient goes into your cells and to the mitochondria, that's the energy powerhouse. That's where you get energy from. And so you get good energy. If you satiate your mitochondria or your cells, you'll be energized. And that's the process of nourishing or nutrifying your body. And that's basically medicine. In terms of resources, I'll have to send, nothing is coming off the top of my head. There are many. So the thing is that it's not a one-stop shop. There's multiple practitioners out there, and there's a lot of information. It's a flood of information. It absolutely is hard to implement. Yeah, so that's what I have my own startup, but on the side I do that. I coach people in step by step. I don't know of anyone that's doing it in a comprehensive way. There is a website. Yeah, there is the place that I got this chart from. There is one website that you can do. So you can go to drberg.com, not Dr. Yeah, I think it's drericberg.com or at Dr. Berg or at Dr. Eric Berg. Just look up Eric Berg on YouTube. He has 10 million followers. He is somebody that I highly recommend. He talks about keto a lot. Just ignore that. We shouldn't be on keto and carnivore diets and paleo diets. These are interventions that we should do if we need to rebalance an imbalance. But we should go back to eating normally, the way the Prophet ate, really. If we eat the way the Prophet ate, and I know the Prophet ate less than what we eat, of course, we don't have to go to that extreme because we do have food and we can get nourished and we do need to eat. And the reason why we need to eat a little bit more is because the food during the time of the Prophet is not food during our time. And we might need to eat a little extra to get the nourishment that we need. Otherwise, we're going to be at a loss. We need a daily nourishment. We need 125 essential nutrients, enzymes, vitamins, amino acids, minerals. We're short of minerals. The reason why we're short of minerals is the food that we have today is 10% of the minerals of the food that was existing 100 years ago. So you had brought up hydroponics. Hydroponics is a new technology that is raising hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're getting funded hundreds of millions of dollars. It is just an extension of industrial agriculture. They use chemical inputs to grow their food, and I don't agree with hydroponics. Yes. Of course. That's my whole talk. Sure. So when we eat bread from outside, grown in America, that bread is grown by a wheat where before the wheat has fully matured, they come in and they spray a chemical on it to dry it out right away. It's still green. The wheat is still green. They spray a chemical on it to dry it, and then they process it with the turbine engine, and then they cut the wheat and they bring it in and they collect the wheat from the field. They're spraying it, so when you eat wheat in America, you're basically eating the freshest pesticides. Because as soon as they spray it, it dries out like that. It's not even mature. It's not even fully done yet. And then they fold it in and they turn it into wheat. And they collect it and then they take it in for processing. That's an example. I would not touch any wheat in America. That is an example. Sunflower oils, these oils, I would not touch any. It's just poison. I do not eat outside. Every now and then, I'll go out with friends and we'll eat at, so usually when I go to someone's house, I'll eat before I go. And I'll have just a little bit at the house. But even when I'm there, I take with me activated charcoal. So what activated charcoal in a glass of water. So I have my water here. I only drink water that I know where it came from. This is my water. It's not from the bottle. It's reverse osmosis water. And in this reverse osmosis water, I'll put the activated charcoal. If I'm going to go to a restaurant or if I'm going to be caught eating something, that activated charcoal, I'll drink it. I'll fill my stomach up, and then I'll eat the food, and any chemical will get held by the activated charcoal, and it'll go out of my system. So it's just a technique. Yes. Sorry, can you? That's a really hard question. You have to do research. So I just bought olive oil. I actually have it in my car. I bought it from Natural Grocers, which is very close by here. It cost me. It's about a 500 milliliter bottle, I think. This is 1 liter, so I think it's half this bottle. Cost me $28, and it's by Madhav. Now I haven't done the research on it. Ideally what you're doing is you're going to some place and you're doing the research and you're making sure that the olive oil is not mixed with other oil. But I can taste it. So what happens is when you start eating healthy, your body becomes attuned to stuff. So if your body smells in some way, let's say your underarm smell or your breast smells, or there's, that means that's your body telling you there's something wrong. Your body should not smell. Your body should be sweet smelling. It should not smell. Your underarm should not smell. Your breast should not smell. If you pass wind, it shouldn't smell. It shouldn't smell bad. It shouldn't smell like anything. If you've got a balanced gut microbiome, your body should not smell. Your body should, you don't have to put all of these things on. So, obviously we're sweating underneath here and it's kept, and depending on the fabric, I do use something for my underarms, but what I do is I use castor oil and baking soda, and I mix that together, and that's what I use for my underarms. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yep. I get raw goat milk. I get raw goat milk. Over here. Oh, they sell it at the farmer's market. It's raw goat milk. Yeah, you don't, you, I went to a farmer's, 100%. I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. And you have to do your homework. This is another job that we have to do. Health is wealth. If you don't have it, you can't enjoy anything. You can't enjoy your kids. You can't enjoy the wealth that you have. You can't enjoy life. You can't enjoy work. Health is wealth. It's the number one piece of wealth that we have. And you're going to have to put your time into it. This is the time that we're at right now. We can't trust anybody. And so I do my homework. Food Inc. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's a question. Not too much. So you cannot have it every day. If you have it every day, it's basically taking all elements, taking it and doing it. If you do that every single day, it's going to deplete you of minerals and you're going to get sick. You're going to get really, really sick. Yeah, I eat out maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks. But when I do eat out, so I eat out a little bit more than that. If I do eat out, I'll eat out at a place I know is not compromised. I know that they have an organic salad, for instance, etc. But if I eat out at a desi restaurant, for instance, I will for sure take activated charcoal. There's no question about it. Around what? Sourdough, yes. I eat about I'll eat 2 slices per day when I eat it. I, so I make so there are 2 breads that I eat. One is this sourdough from this lady that does she lives in the Leander, but she does a farmer's market downtown. So I buy it from her. She makes it special for me. And now she's making a special for one other person. So now she's got 2 people. But otherwise, she sells a 12-hour sourdough. I'll eat 2 or 3 slices. I have no problem eating that. Everybody loves bread. But I will not eat bread if it's going to compromise my health. I actually gave it up once. And then I started making my own roti. And the roti I make out of a sprouted spelt or sprouted barley flour. Now, the Prophet ate barley flour. So I get a sprouted barley flour that I can then ferment. I don't know how to ferment. I don't know how to make bread. So I just made the roti, and the roti like falls apart, and I have no idea how to make it. But anyway, I get the taste of it, and it feels like bread, and so I do it. That's what we do. I have a problem with store-bought sourdough. I feel bloated. So what it's doing is increasing my bacterial count in my stomach, and so I can feel it because I'm sensitive to it, and so I stopped it. If I want to go through the little bit of inconvenience of feeling a little bloated and then fine, I'll do it. But I don't do it. If I have a choice, I'll get it from it. That bread is not cheap. It's $12 for that bread. I'm not rich, by the way. I don't have an income. I'm running a startup, and I'm waiting for investment. The investment hasn't come for 2 years, but I just won't. I'll go hungry if I have to. Rice is also very compromised. I eat organic rice. I get it from a place called Azure Standard, Azure Standard. It's mail order. They don't have, so a truck comes from Oregon, and you have to go to a parking lot and you pick up the stuff from the parking lot. I only eat, again, the dates, as long as it's organic. The dates are compromised. The stuff that's coming from Saudi, I do not eat those dates. Saudi is one of the worst offenders of pesticide use. The dates are all they don't have a concept of organic, and I do not know. And as long as I don't know, I'm not going to touch Saudi dates. So, I don't know what's coming. The Yemeni honey, I would have it. You can very easily test. If you do a honey test, you can test. If you pick the honey up like this, no metal can go in honey, right? It'll ruin the honey. So you pick up honey with a wooden spoon, and it drips. As long as the drip doesn't break, it's good honey. Most of the honey today, it says raw. It means nothing. It means nothing. The word raw, the word all natural, the word fresh, these are all, yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on that. My only comment about honey is that I get Manuka honey from New Zealand, and I try to do the best of my ability. I get another honey from Tibet, and if somebody brings me Yemeni honey, I will eat that. Saudi honey, I used to consume Saudi honey at some point. They had some of the best honey in the world, but I haven't. It's also really expensive, and that's a good sign, for for a bottle this big, it was $140, and that's a good sign that okay, that there's something going on there, and then you can very quickly test it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the supply is going to naturally be low because they're an organic farmer and they're not farming for Whole Foods or Amazon. They do. They do. Yeah. Yeah. I have seen evidence of that. I have seen evidence of that. Yes. Yes. They have a tomato at Whole Foods that I really like. And if you put that tomato in a goat curry, it'll be an incredible goat curry. And on that note, I'm going to have to close down. I think I've gone over my time, and then I can take questions afterwards. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum.